Are you effectively targeting your hamstring when your hip is coming off the ground every time you move your leg up? Actually, not quite. Where is your hamstring located? Your hamstring muscle is located opposite of your front thigh, and it is comprised of three muscles. The string part in the word hamstring sounds like spring. To remember, imagine that you are sitting and pressing your butt on a huge spring to help you propel and jump up ballistically. With that in your mind, you know that your hamstring or hamstring is located behind you and not in front. Hope that is helpful. Just to let you know, hamstring is more susceptible to injury than its opposite hip or hip flexors. And the point of sprain and strain sensation, just in case you have an injury here, is usually in your sit bones. You can experience discomfort or apprehension when your hamstring is being stretched correctly. In order for you to safely apply a one-on-one assisted stretch to another person, I highly recommend that you first watch several of my Stretch the Truth videos about the basics of active, isolated self-stretch technique. Although this is about one-on-one assisted stretch mastery, the basic core principles will be the same. Applying a progressive and repetitive stretch to another human body is totally a different level. That is why the depth of your knowledge on AIS, self-stretch, should be better than good. This will help you safely and confidently stretch another person or your partner and learn quickly. Of course, it should be with consistent practice and repetition on your part. In addition, for better and accurate communication, you need to learn basic terms that you will hear from me from time to time from all of my instructional videos. Let's start with the word proximal and distal. Are you familiar with this term? You can easily remember this by just understanding the word distal from the word distance, meaning far or the farthest. Therefore, proximal means the opposite. For you to learn this quickly, let's talk about the application, usually with the hand placement of the stretch therapist. If you say distal hand, this is the hand farthest from the center of the body. If you say proximal hand, this is the hand nearest to the center of the body. In this photo, your left hand is placed on the proximal or nearest to the center of the body. Then your right hand, which is placed distal or farthest from the center of the body. That simple. This can also be applied on body landmarks when you are describing its position or location. Example, my fingers are located distal from my elbow. Therefore, my elbow is located proximal to my fingers. Since my fingers are far from my body compared to my elbow, therefore, it is considered and described to be distal. Let's use your hamstring as an example. The distal part of the length of the hamstring would be the area behind your knees. Therefore, the proximal part of the hamstring would be the area on your buttocks, specifically the sit bones. Tricky, but eventually you can get the hang of it. Sounds difficult, but for others, take it as a challenge. As my mentor, Shifu Danlok, said, when you're confused and overwhelmed, celebrate. Calm down. Don't overdo it. It just means there is something to learn about, and that is why you are confused. Or just repeat this video for review. Today, you will learn to stretch the distal part attachment of the hamstring. This is the area behind your knee. For most people, the distal part is where you feel the irritation the most and discomfort during an applied progressive stretch. By the way, don't be surprised about the mood switch. The following video is actually an upcoming instructional online course that I will be offering in the future. Therefore, we might go a little bit serious after this video. So relax and let's start watching. Distal attachment of the hamstring muscle group, specifically your semitendinosus muscle. Your target area, or the main stretching part here, is your distal attachment of the hamstring. The non-moving part, or stabled segment, is the upper thigh, while the moving part is the lower leg. Your proximal hand is placed on the non-moving part for reinforced stabilization. Your distal hand is placed on the heel to progressively move the knee joint and stretch the distal attachment of the hamstring. The 90-degree angle formed by the hip joint places the hamstring, specifically the proximal attachment, to its full length for this 80-year-old male subject, thereby assisting the applied progressive stretch done by your distal hand. Note that by stabilizing the non-moving part more, which includes the upper thigh and the overall hip that is strapped down on the table, the intensity and the accuracy of isolating the stretch to the distal attachment of the hamstring is increased as your moving distal hand works progressively through the repetition. The 80-year-old male subject is experiencing his first assisted stretching. At his level, active joint movement participation is very minimal to none. Verbal cues are focused more on breathing and relaxation. This is compared to another subject here, a 45-year-old healthy female, which I suggest and recommend you to ask her to participate to move more than the 80-year-old male. Did you notice my pointing finger in the beginning? How about when I tap her heel? This is very important for our method. Let's repeat the video. Watch closely and pay attention. I use freeze frame and slow-mo for you to catch up. Getting your client active in the beginning is the initial step to progressively and gradually transition to active stretching. By pointing and lightly touching your finger on her knee and simultaneously asking her politely, "Please bend your knee up," creates an expectation that your approach is not going to be purely passive. A light tap on her heel while giving her your verbal cues, "Slowly move up," is another way to continuously teach her the habit of participating during your session. But what about full range of motion? Both clients that is represented here are at their beginner's stage or session. I firmly agree that a full range of motion of the knee joint is important to execute and promote better performance. Take note that everybody has a different level of tension and comfort with progressively applied stretch force. As you get to know your subject, A full range of motion can serve as a progression as you ease out through the day session or the next session, as for the 80-year-old subject. Introduction to assisted stretching in the beginning should be focused on the sensation coming from the stretch repetition, rather than immediately focusing on the full range of motion of the knee joint. The proximal hand that stabilizes the upper leg knee should be aligned and directed to the same side of the shoulder in order to maintain the stretching stress exactly parallel to the semitendinosus muscle. Woo! That was a very intense instructional assisted isolated stretch bodyworks, isn't it? I call this stretch bodyworks since both the subject and the physical therapist is at work and they have to be fully awake and mindful. If you like to stretch your partner, especially at this moment of time, this is for you. And for those who are interested and would like more of this kind of videos, please leave a comment below. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell and turn on your notifications. Thank you for listening. This is Jace Lee. I am an active, isolated stretch practitioner.